From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Getting exercise, it's about more than moving the body.
For our brain, we do have to exercise it.
How extension agents are helping people fight back against Alzheimer's and dementia. How's planting going? A tale of two states facing extremes as China faces new concerns about lockdown.
China's in the middle of its really the worst COVID wave.
What that means for producers here at home this morning on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. U.S. stocks trending downward to start the week after Shanghai's stock index sank more than 5%. Now, it comes after China reinforced its stringent pandemic policies as COVID case numbers rise there. China's capital, Beijing, has begun mass testing and shutting down residential areas amid a new outbreak of COVID-19. Urgent and grim, those are the words Chinese officials are using to describe the virus grip on parts of the country. This week, Chaoyang, one of the largest districts in Beijing, is set to launch 3 rounds of mass testing for about 3.5 million people. Meanwhile, in still lockdown Shanghai, people who test positive are taken to government quarantine facilities. But there is word that lockdowns in that city could start to be lifted today. Now, I spoke with Joel Haggard. He works for the U.S. Meat Export Federation in Hong Kong. He tells me the recovery after lockdown could take weeks.
The port is open, and the Shanghai port runs 24/7. It's one of the world's largest. It probably is the world's largest by recent statistics. But it means exports aren't going out and imports aren't coming in. It's on the export side, the Shanghai area and the Shanghai port is kind of a collection area for the exports of a lot of electronics that are produced in that eastern China region. On the import side, Shanghai is a big meat import port. And meat imports, what can get in at the moment, and there are ships being diverted, but what can get in at the moment is finding a real difficult time moving from the port inland to cold storages because many of Shanghai's cold storages are shut down. So it's so in terms of commerce, moving into the city, through the city, and out of the city into other areas, it's pretty messy right now.
As for U.S. meat exports to China, he says the pork market has been weak because of the rebound in China's domestic herd for U.S. beef. Weekly sales are up about 30% through early April, with record beef exports to China last year of $1.5 billion. And the beef industry will be in the spotlight this week on Capitol Hill, and it starts today in the Senate. The Senate Ag Committee will take a look at revamped cattle market legislation being proposed, the bipartisan bill called the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act of 2022. It was first introduced back in November by senators such as Republicans Charles Grassley of Iowa and Democrat John Tester of Montana. And then tomorrow, the House Ag Committee will hold its own hearing on the industry, where CEOs of the 4 major meat packers in the U.S. are expected to testify. The hearing, entitled An Examination of Price Discrepancies, Transparency, and Alleged Unfair Practices in Cattle Markets. We will bring you live coverage of both hearings online, so make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. In many parts of the country, it was a busy week of planting last week. That includes farmers across central and western Missouri. Now, our group caught up with Nail Farms in Orick, Missouri on Friday. They missed some of those rains in the forecast last week, which helped them make some major headway with planting. Jeff Nail tells us they have 70% of their corn now planted, the majority of that planted just last week. And they were rained out over the weekend, but Jeff says it looks like they'll get back into the field tomorrow and plan to switch over to soybeans. Planting is continuing to move forward, but it's still slow going. USDA reporting in its latest crop progress report that 7% of the corn crop is now in the ground. That's 8% behind the 5-year average. Soybean planting now at 3%. That's 2% behind the 5-year average, while cotton planting is moving ahead of average, now 12% planted. That's 1% ahead of schedule.
AgDay weather, brought to you by AGI Nico. AGI Nico dryers have an average of 1 to 2 pounds heavier test weight per bushel than screen dryers. They can also save you 30% on average in fuel savings. That's money in your pocket. Visit aggrowth.com/Nico for more information.
A real mess right now in North Dakota. Watch as these power lines fall like dominoes in the western part of the state, brought down in blizzard conditions over the weekend. Now, power crews saying areas could be without electricity for up to 2 weeks. Montana Dakota Utilities reporting it's the worst damage it has ever had on its system. While in the northeastern part of the state, flash flooding is an issue there. Melting snow and heavy rains causing all kinds of problems. Ben Longler sharing this video from a mini northwest of Fargo as he drives through a field now flooded that won't be planted anytime soon. A chilly start to the week in the Midwest. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us with an update.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. And it's going to start out as a quiet start to the week again. But by the second half of the week, we'll bring back in more chances of rain. Here's a look at our jet stream on Wednesday. Very, very warm in the deep south and into the Gulf Coast, but kind of that jet stream moving to the north, back up into the upper Midwest. That's going to bring mild air returning into places that saw some snow heading into last week, but also cooler air still lingering for the Great Lakes and into the Northeast, where we're going to see some more rain showers possible as the week progresses. But let's take a look at our wind chills in the upper Midwest over the next couple of days. This morning, we could see wind chills in the teens, even closer to 11 degrees there in Grand Forks. Gets a little bit warmer as we head through the middle part of the day, but then tomorrow morning again, temperatures in the teens, even Duluth, down towards Green Bay, another area that is going to be dealing with temperatures much below average. Let's take a look at Green Bay, Wisconsin. Tuesday, got some rain and snow showers, a high of 41 degrees. Staying in the 40s as we head through Wednesday, Thursday, returning back to the 50s on Friday, but the high temperature, the average high temperature is 59 degrees. We're going to be well below that as we head through this week. And Arkansas seeing a little bit of rain. Randy posting this picture on Twitter saying that he doesn't think they'll need the airflows or the sprayer today after the Tuckerman area saw 4.5 to 5 inches of rain in under 48 hours last week. Drought not an issue in that part of the state. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Keeping you updated on this vaccine candidate for African swine fever has passed an important safety test. The test is required for regulatory approval and it moves the vaccine one step closer to being available commercially. The Ag Research Service says new results show the USDA vaccine candidate does not revert to its normal virulence after being injected into swine. Safety studies are required to gain approval for vaccine use in Vietnam and eventually in other countries around the world. ARS saying future commercial use depends on approval from the Department of Animal Health within each requesting country. Commodity markets are in volatile times. We'll look at the biggest factors influencing markets and prices next. And later, a shuffle in the top 3 producing dairy states as the newest member sees nearly 200% growth in the past 2 decades. Details after weather. In agribusiness, as input costs rise, farm loans are rising too. That's according to the latest data from the Kansas City Federal Reserve. Now, it says lending accelerated in the first quarter of the year due to what it calls a significant increase in the size of operating loans. The Federal Reserve says the outlook for the ag economy remains strong in 2022 due to these elevated commodity prices. However, rising input costs could hurt future profitability. The bank also concerned about livestock producers now facing higher feed costs. It expects inflation to continue to push loan demand even higher. We're joined today by Darren Fry with Water Street Solutions. Darren, as we talk about these markets, obviously been trying to wrap our arms around what's really happening here. It's just been so choppy. From your perspective, what do you see?
Well, they are really volatile, like you said, Clinton, and I think that's caused by 2 different things. One is the uncertainty around this situation in the Black Sea, Russia, Ukraine. A lot of people thought that if they even invaded, it would last 2 or 3 days. We're heading into the 3rd month now, and I think that keeps uncertainty really high. Along with that, it's what does Putin plan to do? And we hear over the weekend that he's been bombing, ports along the southern coast, and even in Odessa, there could be some structural damage. And so that is a longer term problem. But in the meantime, you've just pushed a lot of traders out of the market. You're starting to have a thinly traded market, whether you look at wheat, corn, soybeans. People have kind of taken their ball and gone home. And so with that comes more volatility. And now we get into the weather uncertainty of our North American, Northern Hemisphere planting season. And I think that's causing more consternation in the market.
You know, and we talked about a lot of these kind of, we've always called them black swans in the industry, right?
Yes.
Things that are unknown and things that could happen. But is there anything setting up to give us indications of direction? Because it seems to be flipping one side or the other, and even in the same day.
Yeah, the market's really following headlines, and when headlines come out that are positive, like we saw Indonesia talking about banning crude palm oil, and of course the market rallied. Then they clarified what they meant by that, and bean oil gave it all back. And so the market is just really sensitive to headlines, but I think its macro drivers are going to be the North American weather system that we see come in here for the 22 growing season. And then, of course, what's happening over in Russia and Ukraine. Those are going to be the main drivers. And, you know, when you look at weather even over there, if there was no war, there's some dryness that's approaching in those areas for the 22 growing season that one has to be concerned about. So I think weather will dominate. What do we grow? And then what's happening with the war for further logistical challenges. But don't forget, China's got a real problem with COVID and lockdowns, and that's making some of these supply chain shortages even worse.
So many things to keep an eye on. Darren, sure appreciate you helping us out here on Ag Day. We'll be back with more coming up in just a minute.
For marketing strategy specific to your operation, contact Water Street Solutions at 866-249-2528 or online at www.waterstreet.org. Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here, starting with the jet stream here. Matt, obviously trying to figure out what's going to happen this week weather-wise.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty zonal flow, at least to start off. But as we head towards the second half of the week, it'll get a little bit warmer with a nice ridge building through the center of the country. And that ridge is going to build through the center of the country as we head through the end of the week. That will bring kind of a little bit of a break from some of that warmth across parts of the center of the country there, but eventually bring it right on back. Still going to be warm back in the south and west. But watch this as we head through the middle part of the week. Cooler air hanging on there into the northeast. Here comes that ridge building up through parts of the Plain States and into the Midwest. And then another little bit of a trough back here towards the west. That's going to start to bring in some scattered showers and even some higher elevation snow there into the northern Rockies. Start to bring a system out, which is eventually by the weekend going to move up through the middle part of the country. Could be bringing a storm threat along with it there through the middle part of the country as we head through this coming weekend. So that's something we'll keep an eye on there. But then we've got another dip in the jet stream, another system moving in, heading into early next week. Again, very active as we head through next week. This week, though, and not too bad. Right now, we've got highs in the 80s down through Florida and the southeast coast. Nearing the triple digits back in Phoenix heading through this afternoon and still staying pretty cooler. Temperatures about 15 to 20 degrees below average in the northern plain states and in the Great Lakes as well. Temperatures by tomorrow morning going to fall down, get a little bit cooler, especially here in the East Coast, and it's going to stay that way as we head through tomorrow afternoon with temperatures in the 50s and 60s, even 41 there in Rochester. 70s and 80s, though, returning to the center of the country. Drought monitor still be very, very dry back in the west, and that's something that we're going to see if we can get kind of a reprieve from. But here's a look at that map where we've got high pressure in control. Not a lot going on out in the west as we've got more rain and some higher elevation snow there. Meanwhile, the front in the east moving off. High pressure taking over for a good portion of this week. not a lot going on until we get towards the weekend, and this storm system will gather some more moisture. So here's a look at the next 10 days of precipitation. We've got more rainfall coming, most of it though occurring as we head through next week. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep tracking it right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Allagash, Maine, morning showers, mostly cloudy, a high of 56 degrees. Scott City, Kansas, sunny, warm, and very windy, a high of 73. And Boise, Idaho, showers likely, a high of 60 degrees.
Dairy industry leaders say the supply chain challenges have cost U.S. dairy exporters over $1.5 billion last year alone. And they've sent a letter to the Biden administration with some recommendations. Now, the letter coming from the U.S. Dairy Export Council and the National Milk Producers Federation. Among their recommendations, bringing back the program that would detail the availability of ocean shipping containers at locations across the U.S., also known as OSCAR. Establishing inland pop-up terminals similar to those recently established in Oakland and Seattle, along with incentivizing ocean carriers to load more export containers. Now, the letter was sent to Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Milk production in Texas has been on the rise, so much so that it now ranks number 3 for milk production in the country. USDA in its March production report shows the Lone Star State climbed 6.7%, pushing it past Idaho. One Texas A&M dairy specialist saying that production in the state has increased a whopping 190% from 2001 to 2020, going from just over 5 billion pounds to more than 14 billion. He says the expansion of processing capacity and new plant construction in the Panhandle has spurred the increase. California still ranked number 1 for production. Up next, exercising your mind. How extension educators in Tennessee are fighting back against Alzheimer's and dementia in the country. In Tennessee, more than 3,000 people die each year because of Alzheimer's and dementia. Now, the Extension Service with the University of Tennessee is trying to help with a program designed to combat the onset of these diseases with challenging exercises for the mind. Charles Denny has a report from the University of Tennessee.
So in this activity, you need to identify what coins are needed to make the given amounts of change.
An energetic workout for the brain. Puzzles and games to keep the mind active. The challenges include adding up a combination of pocket change, unscrambling words, and memorization. 83-year-old Guy Malden is playing and says these sessions are good to engage the senses and improve his focus.
You know, I think the things that help the brain, my opinion, are physical activity and socialization. I don't have the quick recall, but you know, I've been told that as you age, you lose the quick recall, but you gain wisdom. So when I can't think of anything, I just think how wise I am.
There you go.
Yeah.
These folks at the Memorial Park Community Center in Johnson City are keeping their wits about them. In fact, it's a program called WITS, led here by Elizabeth Renfro with UT Extension in Washington County. Renfro equates this to a physical exercise class, where you have a warm-up, the main workout in the middle, and then a cool down.
You know, for our brain, we do have to exercise it. We do have to work it out. It's about brain health and helping seniors, or really just anybody, just kind of work out their brain and making sure that it helps with like memory, long-term memory, short-term memory.
Like so many of you, I also have a loved one affected here. My mom, Judy Denny, suffers from Lewy body dementia, and my sister and I had to make the very difficult decision to put her in assisted living, where she's been for about 3 years now. My mother is one of 120,000 Tennesseans living with Alzheimer's or related dementia.
It's estimated by 2025, 7 million Americans will be affected by Alzheimer's or dementia. With a rapidly aging population, programs like WITS are critical to help people protect their brain health.
It really provides the opportunity for seniors and others to really sharpen their cognitive skills. We know our brain is an essential organ. It provides us the ability to communicate, to walk and be mobile, as well as make decisions, and as well as problem solve.
As heartbreaking as memory loss can be for the person affected and their loved ones, we can be proactive to perhaps slow the onset of these terrible diseases. What might seem like a simple game can have a healthy impact. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles. And that's all of our time this morning. Sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in Farm Country.